Welcome to Bookhub. Please like, subscribe and share with your friends if you like our content. During World War II, over 70,000 men were designated conscientious objectors, whose religious beliefs made them oppose war. Some refused to serve, but 25,000 joined the U.S. Armed Forces in non-combat roles such as medics and chaplains. Desmond T. DOS of Virginia was one of those men, though he personally shunned the title of Conscientious Objector. DOS, who was born in 1919, was raised in a Seventh-day Adventist church with a strong belief in Bible and Ten Commandments. He was particularly opposed to murdering and working on a Sabbath, which he observed on Saturday as a Seventh-day Adventist. DOS was working at the Newport News Naval Shipyard when the United States entered the war. DOS could have easily applied for a deferment in 1942, and many would have anticipated as much from someone who refused to bear arms against another. DOS, on the other hand, felt compelled to serve his country. DOS did not oppose enrollment when drafted in the spring of 1942. In fact, he believed the war is justified and desired to do his part, but for him that meant saving lives, not taking them. Thus DOS describes himself a conscientious cooperator. In spite of his conscientious objector status, DOS was required to undergo the usual basic training. He was allowed to forego weapons training, and even received a pass to attend church on his Saturday Sabbath. Although DOS was a willing participant and felt himself to have as great a sense of duty as any man in his unit, boot camp was not an easy time for him. He was verbally harassed. Boots and other items were sent flying his way as he prayed at night by his unit, and bullied by both enlisted men and his commanding officers. DOS held on to his faith and was an exemplary soldier. Several attempts were made to remove him as they considered him as a coward and weakness to the unit. His commanding officers attempted to have him discharged for mental illness, but he refused to accept, stating he could not agree to a discharge due to his religion. DOS commanding officers eventually gave up, realizing that such a discharge would never be approved at high. Another officer unsuccessfully attempted to have him court-martialed for refusing to hold a rifle. Instead of a court-martial, he denied DOS leave, nearly causing him to miss seeing his brother Harold, who had joined the U.S. Navy. In 1944, DOS shipped out, bound for the Pacific as a member of the medical detachment of the 307th Infantry Regiment. Although DOS would become known for his actions on Okinawa, the bloody battle there was not his first. The 77th landed in Guam in July 1944. The men who had threatened to kill DOS in boot camp quickly realized the value of their Bible-carrying medic. For his bravery in treating wounded men under fire during the fighting in Guam, DOS was awarded a Bronze Star for Valor. After Guam, the 307th fought at Leyte. Again, DOS showed his dedication to his comrades and bravery in combat and was awarded a second Bronze Star. By the time DOS arrived with his unit on Okinawa, any reservations his fellow soldiers had about him had turned to respect. They knew that DOS was there for them and would run into enemy fire to save them at the risk of his own life. The 307th Infantry Regiment moved into the line on Okinawa on April 29, on the top of the Maeda escarpment known as Hacksaw Ridge. The Japanese had spent years entrenching their soldiers, creating a maze of tunnels in the hill. After a company's near annihilation in taking the escarpment, the remainder of Company A, plus Company B, of which DOS was a part, climbed cargo nets to the top on May 2, 1945. The escarpment where the men were fighting was a cliff roughly 400 feet high. The top 35 feet created an overhang, where the cargo nets had been necessary for the men to reach the top. For days, men of the 307th held out, fighting against heavily entrenched Japanese forces. Japanese machine gun fire was so intense. Unarmed, DOS treated the wounded under enemy fire. He had removed any markings indicating he was medic, as Japanese forces knew taking out one medic could result in the loss of more GIs who would have no one to help them. Over the next several days, Dos continually put himself in mortal danger to aid his fallen comrades. By May 5, the fighting intensified to the point that all men were ordered to retreat. Dos refused. An estimated 75 men remained behind, too wounded to retreat under their own power. He would not leave them behind. Dos successfully rescued 75 men trapped at the top of the escarpment by lowering them from the hill. Miraculously, he did not get wounded and stayed in the fight with Company B. On May 21, Dos was wounded several times by grenade fragments and a sniper's bullet through his arm. He continued to put others first, refusing treatment before those more seriously wounded. Due to his extensive wounds, Dos was evacuated in late May. He returned home, but spent years recovering from his wounds and from tuberculosis, which he had caught in Leyte. On October 12, 1945, President Harry S. Truman presented Dos with the Medal of Honor in a ceremony on the White House lawn. Truman shook Dos's hand and told him, "I'm proud of you. You really deserve this. I consider this a greater honor than being president." Dos was the first and only conscientious objector to receive the Medal of Honor during World War II. Of the honor, Dos said, "I feel that I received the Congressional Medal of Honor because I kept the golden rule that we read in Matthew 7 verse 12. All things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them." Thanks for listening to us. Please support us by subscribing,